Gadget RC says, could you comment on the new drone executive orders? Yes. In fact, Blunty, we talked about, we didn't do this on Saturday because it didn't come up, but we talked about, I think that we kind of need to at least address this. And so I'm glad you asked. So first of all, there are 2 new executive orders related to drones. They came out June 6th. They are restoring American airspace sovereignty and unleashing American drone dominance. And there are links in the Discord. Blunty, if you can paste the links in the YouTube chat as well. You can also just search for them. And one of them wants to incentivize American drone manufacturing. So let's see what it says. Within 30 days of the date of this order, I'm not going to read you the whole thing. We're not going to sit here and read the whole thing, so don't worry about that. The Secretary of Transportation shall issue a proposed rule enabling routine beyond visual line of sight operations for UAS for commercial and public safety purposes. So one of the things about executive orders is that there are things that the president has the authority to do and things that the president can, like, say he wants done, but doesn't have the authority to actually order. And what's interesting is that I'm pretty sure that the president has the prerogative to tell the administrator of the FAA to promulgate a rule. Because, like, the FAA, you know, he works for the president. The president can just fire him if he doesn't do what he wants. I think that this is actually probably doable. I don't know. Blunty, do you have an opinion? And if you say no opinion, then we'll just shut up. But, like, I know that, like, no. There's the FAA Reauthorization Act will get passed by Congress. That is a law. And it will say, Congress will say via the law, the FAA should implement remote ID. That's the thing that happened. And then the FAA has to promulgate the rule to implement remote ID. Do you think that the president has the right to say to the FAA administrator, hey, as long as you're not contradicting the law, I want you to do this additional thing?
I have no idea.
Damn. Okay, I'll just talk out of my ass then. We're much wiser than I am in that respect. It seems to me like as long as what the president is saying doesn't contradict the laws passed by Congress, which bind the FAA, then the president can say to the administrator, hey, you work for me, go do this thing. And so it seems like this one's interesting because, I mean, routine beyond visual line of sight for commercial and public safety purposes. When I hear routine beyond visual line of sight, I'm like, yes. And then I hear commercial and public safety purposes, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to help hobbyists at all, is it? I don't think so.
No, this is exactly what they were already going to do. I mean, this is just a written thing that was already going to happen. Like we talked about 30 days ago, they were preparing to release the BVLS in about 60 days, the NPRM, to start planning the rule for BVLS. So it's the exact same timetable the FAA already had. So I'll just say that.
What you're saying is, what it sounds like you're saying, without saying it, is that the White House is like taking credit for something that has already been in the works for a long time and acting like it was their idea.
I don't know if they happen to know that time frame, but this happens to be, or if the FAA knew this was going to come out, that could be the other reason that we heard this. But we heard like a couple months, we heard a while back that this was the time frame.
You're saying it's possible that the FAA anticipated that this would happen and so preemptively started work.
I don't know, but they told us it would be 2 months a month ago. And
in other words, this executive order, as of June 6th, did not initiate this process. This was already in the works before June 6th. That's just a fact. All right.
Correct.
Fair enough. The Secretary of Transportation shall establish clear metrics for assessing the performance and safety of BVLOS operations. So we're going to implement BVLOS operations, and we're going to track how effective they are. Great. Within 120 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of Transportation shall initiate the deployment of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence! Whoa! AI! We're going to have AI, everybody! What's AI? I don't know. Where's the definition of artificial intelligence? I don't know, but they gotta be AI!
They have an OMB memorandum that goes for all the departments that talks about the AI implementations you're required to use.
What are they? Is it you must use Grok?
I don't know. You have to read through it. I haven't read through it.
Okay. We got to use AI, everybody. AI is the future. Oh, hey, I've got this tool that works really well and has been successful for a long time. Yeah, it's called a compass. It's a compass. It tells you which direction north is, and it's super useful for navigation. Doesn't have AI. I don't want it. You got an AI compass? I need to train a large language model. We're going to feed it compass data, and it's going to use a large language model, machine learning, neural network to tell us which direction north is, and it's going to be better. ChatGPT, what direction is north? North is that way. ChatGPT, that's south. Oh, my mistake. North is that way. All right, we're going to use AI. Yada, yada, yada.
I put a link in the chat.
Further rulemaking to eliminate the need for individualized waivers. The trend of eliminating individualized waivers for BVLOS data flights is a good one. I just am skeptical that it's going to end up helping hobbyists.
Well, they want to do it for all flights. So this is all
but
waivers.
It specifically said commercial and public safety purposes.
Oh, that's the one above this section.
That's section 4. This
We're
is
on
section
C.
Well, section 4, B, C, 1, 2, 4, etc. We're still in section 4.
These are different things. So A and B are different things than C.
I see. I'm sorry. Section 4A. I apologize. You're right. Okay. Well, that would be great.
So C is all waivers that are under 107 is what they're trying to do. Is basically say, hey, stop manually doing these, get an AI to judge them, and make them spit out an answer automatically so you don't, yeah.
Like, that's great because 107 waivers are very tedious to get. Although I'm skeptical, like an AI is going to look at my waiver application and it's going to reject it and it's not going to tell me why. And that'll actually be just like the current process. So actually, that's no worse. At least it'll happen quickly.
I was going to say, can you imagine though if you it actually just runs through an LLM and spits it back in like 20 seconds?
I mean, if it worked, that would be great. I mean, so far I'm not too mad about this.
I bet these will have personal manual approval though. You know what I mean? There'll be some kind of BS in the way of it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Explore options to assure that UAS flights beginning and ending in the United States can operate without being subject to onerous requirements applicable to manned aircraft. Oh, that's good. Stop treating...
Specifically the international navigation rules. So things you have to do, like if you fly technically in international airspace, you have to have a pilot registration and you have to have a certain aircraft registration. And so that technically applies for all aircraft, and we define aircraft as UAS. So this is trying to exempt them from that.
And
even though that hasn't really been applied to them, I don't think.
If I'm on a United States ship on the high seas, even though I'm in international waters. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of this seems to be like, hey, we don't have specific rules for drones for XYZ, so you should make them.
Updated roadmap for the integration of civil UAS into the National Airspace System. Roadmap doesn't really mean anything. It's not really.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like 2/3 of a year, you should tell us what you're going to do. You know what I mean? That's a real weak point.
All FAA UAS test ranges. Okay. Whatever. Electrical VTOL and landing program.
Yeah, so part of this also is to try to force them to allow eVTOLs to work. Basically, you're trying to rip away some of the regulation that would prevent people from operating a AAM vehicle, advanced air mobility, which is these air taxis we've talked about in the past. There are a lot of regulatory hurdles to getting them flying, and a lot of red tape, a lot of approvals, and some of this is trying to remove or streamline some of those approvals. We're basically asking them, you need to figure out how to streamline those approvals.
Yeah, more eVTOL stuff. Full extent, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Where's the, here we go. Strengthening the American drone industrial base. I think this is in some ways the meat of this. Prioritize the integration of UAS manufactured in the United States over those made abroad to the maximum extent permitted by law. So this is super vague because the devil is in the details. Does this mean that no one is allowed to buy foreign drones at all? well, all agencies, all federal agencies. I mean, they kind of are already not allowed to do that. So what's changed here? I don't know. It feels like a situation where they're going to go to some federal agency and say, hey, you broke Section 7A of this executive order, and they're going to make up some reason why you didn't prioritize UAS manufacturers in the U.S. If you're an American drone manufacturer, though, you've got to be slavering right now. An update to the covered foreign entity list, that already exists. They're just going to, I guess they're just going to update it within 30 days. I mean, Blunty, any thoughts about this? The foreign entities list already exists. And
yeah, it's not clear what they're implying there. I suggest that they're going to have some kind of guidance that's not on this paperwork as to what's actually happening with that. Because, otherwise it would be what's happening already.
Right. So the covered entity list, for those who don't know, is companies that basically the federal government can't buy drones from. They can't do business with them, more or less. Foreign entities. So presumably they're going to update the foreign entity list. They're not just going to go, oh, well, here it is. It's the same one that it was 30 days ago. Take actions to secure the United States drone supply chain against foreign control or exploitation. So, this, something will happen. We don't know what these actions will be. Presumably, the people who drafted this executive order, and I mean, obviously the president didn't just sit down and be like, here's what I think we should do. And, this didn't spring from his head. Like there are, lobbyists and advisors and et cetera who come up with these things. Presumably there's an idea about the rules that they intend to make, but we won't know what those are until they make them. Export control restrictions, expedited export of U.S. manufactured civil UAS to foreign partners. So we're gonna export our amazing drone technology, and our foreign partners are gonna be like, crikey, thanks Americans, we're just gonna keep using DJI. I don't know why they were Australian. Right? They're just gonna keep using DJI, right? They're not gonna oh, these American drones are so good. Blimey. Now here's where American drone manufacturers start slavering. Direct loans and loan guarantees, equity investments, and co-financing. Oh, the federal government is going to throw money at American drone manufacturers. And I got to say, that's what China's been doing for decades. So, that's part of how they got so good. Drones to the DoD, to warfighters. Yep. We're going to expand the blue UAS list, and so on. So that's that one. And then restoring American airspace sovereignty. Let's see. We control our national airspace. The Task Force, National American Sovereignty Task Force, review and propose solutions to UAS threats. Proposed solution to UAS threats. Put your head between your cheeks and kiss your ass goodbye. If I was a drone defense company, I'd be happy to hear this. Regulations to protect the public. Notice of proposed rulemaking. Establish a process for restricting drone flights over fixed site facilities. Isn't that already prohibited? Make assessments about military, basically trying to come up with rules to protect secure air sites. A new way to publish NOTAMs and TFRs for drone geofencing. So the idea there is you'll be more easily able to geofence drones automatically. Go ahead, Bunty.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do like that, though, too, because this also means, our apps will be way more accurate because they're basically forcing them to build a way to update the apps better. So
yeah. Full enforcement of applicable civil and criminal laws when drone operators endanger the public. So when I read this paragraph, it says to me that there's a shift in tone, that drone operators are going to be further vilified. And how exactly it manifests itself, I don't know. But It suggests a shift in tone more than something concrete. Go ahead, Blenty.
Yeah, what this reads to me is that, hey, you should be enforcing things when people do bad things, and then you'll see the next section. Here, section 7 is detection, tracking, and ID. And it talks about providing better ways to track drones and using more technology to mitigate and getting them identified in the airspace. And like, this is basically network remote ID is how I read this whole section.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know what network remote ID is, that means it's not just broadcast remote ID where you're broadcasting around you.
Right.
Network remote ID means that you are connected to a database online. So you're either on a 5G modem or you're on a Wi-Fi connection, and you're connected to the internet. So your drone position is updated to a server constantly, so everybody can see where you are across wherever, not just in the local area.
Right.
And there's a big push for them to integrate this because of AAM, the air taxis that we talked about, in addition to other aircraft. But they really want, you know, when we talked a little bit like 30 days ago about how the FAA had told us it was a 2-month forward, they also told us that there's going to be a big push to get every single thing in the air tracked. So they don't want that. They're talking about, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, even private planes will all need to broadcast ADS-B at all times. Like, every single thing in the air they want to be tracked at all times. So I think this is all part of that big push to make all that happen. It's unfortunate, but it sounds like and where this is all going to come to a head, if you don't know about it, is ultralight and similar things like that, because they're going to want ultralights to have ADS-B or some kind of tracking on them too. There's like a that was fought really hard and has barely any regulations. So this is going to be a mess. I just want to prepare you for that. They want to track everyone, not just us.
Yeah. Okay. They're going to have automated real-time access to personal identifying information. So basically, your remote ID transponder gives like your FAA number, but that to tie that back to your actual identity, the federal agency has to go to the FAA and say, hey, tell us who this person is. FAA number 1234567 is Joshua Bardwell. And they want to automate that. I don't think they're saying that that information will be available to the general public, but to basically law enforcement agencies. If I'm a local cop and I see remote ID broadcasting FAA number 1235678, I can go to an FAA server and I can look that up without having to actually, like write a letter or do a subpoena or whatever the normal process is. So making that easier. Recommendation to the president using a risk-based assessment. That just means they're going to pull it out of their ass. They're not going to do a risk-based assessment. They didn't do it about remote ID, even though they're supposed to. They're just going to make this stuff up, probably. The Attorney General shall explore integrating counter-U.S. operational responses as part of joint terrorism task forces for the purpose of protecting mass gathering events. This one, to me, like, obviously, like I say, the devil's in the details, and the implementation matters, but this one, to me, I have thought for a long time, you hear stories about drones being used offensively in war, and I know this is a topic that many people are uncomfortable with, and if we go too deep down that topic, we may start a shitstorm that we're not going to start. But I think about the potential use of drones for terrorism-related mass casualty events or mass gathering events. And I think about how easy it would be to fly a drone over a football stadium, an open-air football stadium, with just GPS-based navigation. I don't even need a control link. I don't need a video link. I just do waypoints, and I could put a drone over that stadium and then drop whatever your imagination could come up with. And we're all good people here, and so maybe our imagination can't come up with anything, but there are definitely bad people out there who are much more imaginative at those things. And to me, that seems like a big problem that will eventually come to a head, and it's more luck than skill that it hasn't happened yet. Because the defense is, like, what's the defense against that? And so I look at this and I say, thank God someone is thinking about this at all. Because I won't say that no one has been thinking about this. I'm not the only person. Somewhere out there, someone at the FBI, someone at the Joint Terrorism Task Force is clued in enough about drones, and they've put the pieces together and they've gone, oh, shit. oh my God. This is a disaster. We have nothing. Our pants are completely down about this. And they're just as freaked out as I've been. It's nice that as someone at the executive level is thinking about this. And then what's the solution? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Hire me. Hire me for a massive consulting fee, and I'll tell you what the solution is. Joint Terrorism Task Force. Let me ask you something. Just completely hypothetically. Everybody's mad. Oh, don't work with the military. Don't work with the government. If an FPV pilot worked with the Joint Terrorism Task Force to try to come up with defenses for mass gathering events, would the FPV community lose their shit the way that they did when Rotor Riot was like making weaponized drones? I wonder. Anyway, moving on. That's it. So, I heard some people saying there's going to be a new executive order that bans DJI. That doesn't seem to be in there. It basically seems to be, how can we broad stroke this, Blunty? Number one, give money to American drone manufacturers and continue to prioritize American drone purchasing over foreign drones to the extent that an executive order can do that. Make eVTOLs and air taxis more feasible. More integration of remote ID and easier to find out where drones have been and who is flying them. What else, Blunty? Any other broad points? I don't know.
Yeah, basically just make sure we can get the drones out of the sky. Make sure the drones in the sky can be tracked. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. The world of the future increasingly looks like there are more and more commercial drones, more and more industrial drones, more and more government, military, police, search and rescue, official drones, and fewer just cool guys flying FPV drones for fun. Or at least, yeah. It certainly seems like that is the way the world is going and has been going. So let's smoke them if we got them, I guess is what I would say. And you never know. All right, so that's the executive orders. Thank you guys for hanging in with me. This is kind of a big deal. So...